Okay, so I gotta say, when I first saw the news about Jurgen Klopp going to Red Bull, I was like, what?
Yeah.
I mean, Jurgen Klopp, the guy who brought Liverpool back, I mean, the passionate leader that everyone loves, and Red Bull, it seemed crazy.
It was definitely a head scratcher for a lot of people, I
Yeah.
think. But you know what? That's what's so interesting about this whole thing. This isn't just some random transfer. It's like a master class in how to be adaptable, how to think strategically about your career. It's about understanding how leadership is changing.
You're right. And for those of us who maybe don't follow every single Premier League game, could you give us a little background? Like, just how big of a deal is Klopp in the world of football?
Oh, he's a legend. No question.
Yeah.
He didn't just manage Liverpool, he brought back this energy, this passion that hadn't been there for years. And before that, he did the same thing with Borussia Dortmund, turned them into a real contender. Klopp's known for being a brilliant tactician. But it's more than that. It's his leadership. It's the way he gets his players fired up, the connection he has with the fans. That's what makes him special.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why this Red Bull move has everyone talking. It's like what happens when you mix a force of nature like Klopp with a brand like Red Bull, known for energy drinks, extreme sports. And that's what we're digging into today with this article we found. Jurgen Klopp's move to Red Bull. Key takeaways for business leaders. It's by Torben Buehrer. And believe me, this goes way beyond just sports. There's stuff in here for everyone, no matter what you do.
Absolutely. And one of the most interesting things about this is that Klopp is taking on a completely different kind of role. He's gone from managing a team on the field, making those split-second decisions, to overseeing Red Bull's entire football operation. That's a global network of teams, each with their own challenges and their own opportunities.
It's like the article says, adaptability is king. It's almost like Klopp is saying, look, I can do more than just coach from the sidelines. I can build something I can lead on a much bigger scale.
It really shows how adaptability in leadership isn't just about saying you're open to change. It's about truly understanding your own strengths and then figuring out how those strengths can work in a totally new situation. He's famous for his emotional intelligence on the field, being able to connect with his players, motivate them. Now he's using that same emotional intelligence in the business world, and that's a skill set that's so valuable these days.
It's like John Henry said, he owns Liverpool. And he said he would hire Klopp to run any company in the world. It's not just about knowing football, it's about leadership.
Right. And you know what else this move highlights? Something that often gets overlooked, even with someone like Klopp burnout.
Yeah, that was actually point number 2 in the article. It really
Yeah.
resonated with me. You don't hear very often about people at the top of their game admitting that they're just burned out.
And that's why it's so powerful for him to say it. Klopp himself said he was drained. He needed a break from the pressure of managing at the highest level of football. It's brave to admit that, especially when you're seen as this almost superhuman figure.
Yeah, there's this pressure, especially in high-pressure careers, to always be on, to act like we can handle anything that comes our way.
And that's just not sustainable in the long term. The fact that Klopp stepped back, prioritized himself, it gives everyone permission to do the same.
A lot of people needed to hear that. And you know what's really interesting? This is where the Red Bull thing gets really fascinating from a strategy point of view.
It does kind of feel like they don't belong together, right? Like you said, you have Klopp, Mr. Passion, Mr. Authenticity, and then you have Red Bull, which some people see as like the ultimate corporation.
Right. It's like one of those memes where they mash up two completely different pictures,
Uh-huh.
but then you look again, you're like, wait a minute, this is kind of brilliant.
Yeah, and here's where the strategy comes in Red Bull. They're killing it in so many sports, right? But with football, they haven't really broken through. There's this idea, especially with the diehard fans, that they're outsiders trying to buy their way into a game that's all about history and tradition.
Yeah, you always hear that plastic club thing, like they've got the money, the marketing, but they're missing that real connection to the sport.
Exactly, and that's what Klopp brings to the table. He instantly makes Red Bull football credible. He's not just a great manager, he's loved within the sport. So it's like they're borrowing some of his authenticity to kind of soften their image a bit.
Like they're saying, look, we actually get it. We're not just here to make a quick buck. We respect the history, the passion.
Exactly. And for Klopp, this isn't just about lending his name to some big company. It's a very calculated move. It's about reaching his ultimate goal, which a lot of people think is coaching the German national team.
Ah, so there's that long game strategy the article mentioned. It's like he's playing chess and everyone else is playing checkers. He's thinking way ahead. And this Red Bull deal, it gives him the experience, the visibility to maybe get that job someday.
It just goes to show that sometimes the straightest path isn't always the best way to get to where you want to go. Sometimes you got to make some moves that seem kind of strange at first, but they set you up for bigger things down the road.
That's really powerful.
Mm.
I mean, how can we apply that kind of thinking to our own careers? What are those experiences that might seem totally random now, but could actually be super valuable later on?
It's about being intentional.
Right?
Thinking beyond just your job title or your salary right now and thinking about how each experience gets you closer to what you really want to be doing. But let's be real, this Red Bull move, it's not without risks for Klopp.
Yeah, the article made that pretty clear. I mean, Red Bull, especially in Germany, their image isn't exactly squeaky clean.
Definitely. Their whole approach to football has been controversial. Some people say they use smaller clubs in their network as farm teams for their main team, RB Leipzig, and that's rubbed a lot of people the wrong way. And then there's the whole idea of a big corporation trying to come in and change a sport that's always been about community and tradition.
It's that old school versus new school clash.
Yeah.
And Klopp, he's so rooted in that traditional side of football. He's really walking a fine line here.
He really is. And it brings up a question we all got to deal with at some point in our careers. How much does public opinion matter? When do the benefits outweigh the risks to your reputation?
It's like that classic dilemma. Do you play it safe and stick with what you know? Or do you take a chance on something that could be huge, even if it ruffles some feathers along the way?
Hmm.
And speaking of Red Bull and their strategy, there's another thing the article talked about that's relevant here: diversification.
Absolutely. They've transformed themselves from this niche energy drink company into a global brand. They're into everything: Formula One, extreme sports music, and of course, football. They've
Yeah.
really figured out how to build this empire without losing their identity.
It's like that saying, jack of all trades, master of none. But Red Bull's like, hold my drink.
Yeah.
They've got their hands in so many different things, but there's still this common thread, this energy, this push the limits attitude that ties it all together.
It's about finding those connections between things that seem totally different. They're not just slapping their logo on random stuff. They're picking things that fit their brand, and then they're using those things to make their brand even stronger.
And that's a good lesson for all of us, right? Whether we're talking about building a global brand or just figuring out our own careers.
Mm.
It's not about saying yes to every opportunity. It's about finding the ones that really light our fire, that
Yeah.
feel right, and that can help us grow.
Exactly. And one thing to remember is that diversification without a clear vision can easily turn into a mess. And this is where Red Bull's approach to what the article called clarity amidst chaos becomes really important.
Especially with their football operation.
Hmm.
It's a lot to handle. Clubs all over the world, different leagues, different styles, different cultures. How do you even create a strategy when you've got that much going on?
It goes back to leadership. And this is a perfect example of how Klopp's leadership style works in this new role. He's not trying to control every little detail from some office. He's more focused on the big picture, setting a clear philosophy, some main goals, and then he lets the leaders at each club figure out how to make those goals happen in their own way.
So it's about finding that sweet spot between giving direction and giving people freedom, letting them do their thing.
Right. You got to trust your vision, and you got to trust the people you've chosen to make that vision a reality. And that actually tells us a lot about what leadership is going to look like in the future.
It's like we're seeing a small version of the challenges and the opportunities that
Yeah.
all leaders are facing. The old way of doing things just doesn't work anymore.
Definitely. The best leaders from now on are going to be the ones who aren't afraid of uncertainty, who can give their teams the power to change and try new things, and who can communicate a vision that everyone can get behind.
It's like you're the architect, not just the construction worker.
Love that. And you know what's really inspiring about Klopp's journey? It reminds us that success doesn't always follow a straight line. Sometimes you got to make some unexpected moves, take on new challenges, and trust that those experiences, even if they seem weird at first, will get you where you need to be.
It's about being brave enough to make your own path, even if it means going off-road a bit.
Totally. And sometimes those detours, they lead to the most amazing places.
This has been a fascinating deep dive. Jürgen Klopp going to Red Bull. It's way more than just a sports story. It's about leadership strategy and how our careers can change in ways we never expect. It makes you think about those what-ifs moments in your own life.
It does. It makes you wonder what amazing opportunities are out there that we're not seeing because we're too focused on the usual way of doing things. What would it take for us to be a little more like Klopp and just go for it?
Great questions to think about. This has been fantastic. Thanks for the chat.
Anytime.
And for everyone listening, keep exploring, keep learning, and hey, maybe you'll be the inspiration for our next deep dive.